Get cozy while I tell you a story I wrote. Deep in the moss-covered heart of Elderland Forest, where
Wait, did you think I wrote that?
Nadira Zermi, who's the founder of Scriptbook AI, says that within 5 years, AI will be able to generate better scripts than humans. Scary, right? The quick development of artificial intelligence is actually why the Writers Guild of America went on strike in 2023 for protection against the new technology. Why should we worry? Humans are always going to prefer works made by humans. Actually, that's a romantic notion that creative professions have been hiding behind for far too long. If you couldn't tell that I didn't make that story, how can you tell when Hollywood uses AI to make a script? Shh! Don't tell them our secrets. We like cheap labor. That's why we're in LA after all. Since it isn't realistic to completely rid AI from creative fields, it should be used as a carefully regulated tool. The United States government needs to guide its use through strict regulations, with the United States Copyright Office determining how much AI influence is allowed for a work to still be copyrightable. Let's do another exercise. Can you tell which one of these people is a teacher? Wrong. Neither. However, if you said it was my mom, it's probably because of the stereotype that teachers are typically women. Dr. Susan Cake actually found that AI enforces this exact stereotype. She experimented using ChatGPT to create a short screenplay about a migrant girl who arrives at school, and the teacher instantly takes a disliking to her because she's a know-it-all. In every iteration, the AI made the teacher a woman. Why is this an issue? You may ask. What's the harm in saying the teacher's a woman? You may also ask. See, this is only one example of stereotyping. Dr. Susan Cake then asked ChatGPT to critique its own work. In critiquing its own work, it states that the child's sole motivation in wanting to be accepted was the fact that she's a migrant. The critique brought up the issue that, while this may be reflective of some migrants' experiences, it is generalization reflecting the inherent potential for stereotyping and bias. Alisa Vanica and others interviewed Finnish scriptwriters at Tampere University. They found that the scriptwriters took into careful consideration who had the right to tell which stories, which is something that AI cannot do. It becomes evident that AI cannot replicate the human touch of sensitivity needed when creating media, since it can only draw from what it's been fed. AI companies train their artificial intelligence system with existing material that commonly reflects Western ideologies. Deep Story, which is an AI system, lists multiple movies that are used in its training. However, it does not clarify if permission was granted or if the owners were duly compensated. The issue of due compensation has been a long-standing one, especially for scriptwriters in Hollywood who have fought for fair pay every time a new technology comes out. For example, in 2007, the Writers Guild of America went on strike over the residuals on DVDs.
Double our pay!
Go for weeks without jobs! No, we prioritize profit over your livelihoods. The issue of compensation is a long-standing one when a new technology is introduced to Hollywood. However, the current Copyright Act stands in the way of authors completely losing their jobs. I'm reluctant to recognize AI-generated works as copyrightable because they aren't original and they don't have a human author. Artificial intelligence is obviously not human, so it already fails the rules in regaining copyright. Furthermore, the way AI is trained means it cannot be original. Rather, it follows a cookie-cutter mold that the audience knows and loves. Alisa Vanica and others found that one of the key aspects scriptwriters attributed to their career was the ability of a writer to find fresh, novel views of phenomena. Hold on. AI works should be copyrightable because AI is a tool. Here, I'll bring up a court case of a once new technology being protected under the copyright laws. As found in the article by Giovanni Lomonaco, in the Supreme Court case of Lithographic Co. versus Cerrone, the Supreme Court held that a camera itself is merely a tool an artist uses to create copyrightable works. A camera can't work without a human pushing the button. AI is the same. It needs a human to push the button and give it a prompt to generate anything. Actually, that's not completely true. See, when a person uses a camera, they control every aspect of it, from the angle, the lighting, and the color, just as I'm making this video now. It's all in my control. When using artificial intelligence, it isn't all in my control. The United States Copyright Office establishes that an artist using AI functions closer to suggestions than orders, similar to the situation of a client who hires an artist to create with general directions as to its contents. The artist, or writer in this case, doesn't have complete control of what comes out. Unlike a camera, it isn't predictable. There are just a few reasons why the new technology isn't protected under copyright jurisdiction. Still, the technology does have its uses and dangers that must be carefully navigated. While the introduction of AI brings about new dangers regarding job security, New tools that people once saw as a threat to their jobs do benefit the film industry today. CGI's first well-known use was in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Stuart Binder writes that originally Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM for short, an American motion pictures and visual effects company, planned to use Phil Tippett's stop-motion team to create the dinosaurs. At the same time, ILM was experimenting with CGI. They presented a test of a walking dinosaur. We're going to lose our jobs because AI does it more effectively. Hold on, we still need you guys. You guys are the experts on giving dinosaurs characteristic expressions. However, a perfect balance of using new technology such as AI and human touch is hard to define. But a use for AI does lie in the editing. Rather than generating whole scripts, AI's use lies in its ability to refine. I made the Gen AI clearly articulate the character motivation and internal conflict, which suggests a useful method for helping students critically reflect on their own work. Furthermore, Vanika admits that AI helped writers gain an impartial perspective, which allows for authors to understand how clear they need to be in articulating their visions so that it can easily be understood by an average person. The first step in creating a relationship between the new technology known as artificial intelligence and creative professionals is strict legislation. Sommer, a lawyer at the University of Nevada, writes, "It is imperative that state legislature adapts to ensure the protection of artists, creators, and the integrity of the creative process."
We don't want to take an official stand on AI.
Well, you need to. Sommer has even laid out a plan for you. He proposes to use 4 states' current AI laws to create a federal law: California, New York, Nevada, and Georgia. A large component of California's current legislation about AI involves the transparency of companies or individuals who use AI, which allows individuals to make choices based on their relative comfort with the usage of AI in work. California also wishes to educate artists on the technology and requires states to create some form of informational resource to make AI more accessible. Importantly, California recognizes that AI cannot hold copyrights. This legislation aims to ensure that human creators who use AI in the creative process are acknowledged as the rightful owners. Other than California, Congress should draw on Georgia's AI laws. Georgia proposed a wide-ranging strategy that harmonizes technological innovation with human oversight. It draws on Hollywood's prioritization of cheap labor by offering incentives such as tax credits or grants, which allows financial benefits to studios to nudge them towards prioritizing human creativity over automation. Federal legislation needs to draw on these 4 states to set the way that AI affects the entertainment industry in the future. Sommer proposes the Technological Protection for Artists Act, which will define the parameters for creating and using digital replicas and synthetic performances, emphasizing the need for artist consent and fair compensation. The legislation also must clarify that a work cannot receive legal protection if it is solely created by AI. There is a small drawback to this potential solution, as the amount of human work needed to make a work copyrightable still needs to be defined and will need to be looked into further. AI's use as a tool is evident. However, it must be regulated on a federal and state level to protect creative fields such as authors. It is important that federal legislation is passed to set a clear parameter for how much artificial intelligence is allowed for a work to still be copyrightable. It is necessary to restrict the use of AI if humans wish to retain their artistic expression, which is important to the very culture of humanity. Due to the continuing development of AI, more strikes similar to that of the Writing Guilds of America will occur until creative professions are promised security in their livelihoods and forms of expression.